We've all heard of a VPN, but ever wonder what it really is? Well, a virtual private network gives you complete security and privacy while online, letting you keep yourself to yourself. And the best provider out there is Surfshark, who have put together the most easy to use and complete VPN service for amazing value for money, so you can browse safely on PC, laptop and phone. But the benefits don't stop there. Surfshark allows you at the click of a mouse or touch of a screen to change your virtual location. Here's how. As I load up the app, my location is set to the UK where I'm based, but on the British Netflix I can't find The Batman, which I've been looking to rewatch for ages. However, thanks to Surfshark, in seconds I can switch to the US library and it's there. I've used Surfshark for a while now. It never crashes, is always speedy, and with their 30-day money-back guarantee policy, why not give it a go? Especially given this code for an extra 3 months free. Go and secure your privacy with Surfshark now. But first, let's get to talking about when Lionel Messi was in his prime. A glorious World Cup campaign, bitter divorce from PSG, and colossal move to David Beckham's Inter Miami. Lionel Messi's last 12 months have added an interesting chapter to a hell of a story that, given his recent entry into the latter half of his 30s, must soon be coming to an end. 20 years in the limelight that hasn't always suited him naturally, the man from modest means in Rosario, Santa Fe has gone on to become a beacon of inspiration and source of entertainment for billions of people globally. Hailed by many football's ultimate genius, whose God-given gifts will never be seen again, the often dubbed Messiah is no stranger to high praise, met everywhere he goes with reasons to embrace an ego. Yet the introverted Argentine has always kept his feet where they are best, on the ground. Though he's only the latest in a long line of aging superstars who have stepped down on the doorstep of retirement to the American MLS, Messi is by far the most renowned, and considering his comments on the next year's Copa America being his last dance with Argentina, this transfer asks the loaded question about when the GOAT will hang up his size 8s. Presently midway through his 21st season as a pro, his 17 unprecedented years in the blue and red of Barcelona accounts for most of his legacy. But when was he at his peak? As a kid, Leo shared the dream of all his peers to play for the local Newell's Old Boys, and by the age of 6 it was realised, spending 5 years in La Lepras Juniors, a span in which he averaged 100 goals per annum, as a member of an exceptional youth side named the Machine of 87. Famously, at 10 years old, he was diagnosed with a growth hormone deficiency known as idiopathic short stature, and his doctor estimated that he would grow to a maximum height of about 4'7" without intervention. The treatment, which was daily injections of hormones, was expensive, and Newell's refused to help. So after 2 years on his father's health insurance, they had to look elsewhere. In 2000, Carlos Reixac welcomed him into the arms of La Masia, FC Barcelona's prestigious academy, famously agreeing to a contract jotted on a napkin. In Catalonia, growth hormone therapy was made available to him, and from bone to muscle, the 13-year-old matured, quickly becoming the prominent prodigy of Barca's baby dream team. 3 years of dominance in the juveniles passed, and Frank Rijkaard called him up to debut for the A-team in a 2003 friendly, and having impressed, the Dutchman began to slowly integrate him into the seniors, where he met Ronaldinho. The marquee name instantly knew what the club had at its disposal and befriended Messi, helping the teen's transition. Gaining some muscle mass became key, and prompted by Dino and co, the head coach gave him his first La Liga minutes in October 2004, with a goal coming the following May, assisted by his big brother. Albacete was victim 1 of an eventual footballing massacre, but this was merely the start. Favouring the enganche or number 10 role growing up, his place in Rijkaard's eyes was on the wing. Though not a Ronaldinho-type showboater, the number 30's fluid agility and rapid change of direction made beating players his forte, simply dodging their challenges before his explosive acceleration got him clear of the marker, able to keep the ball under close control even at top speed. Still, his slight build, which cost him in shoulder-to-shoulder battles, needed work, as did his weaker right foot, but that March a torn hamstring wrote off his season. Recovering in time for the World Cup in Germany, the youngster, who since his excellence with the under-20s had earned stylistic comparisons to Diego Maradona, squared an assist into Hernan Crespo, before burying one of his own to sink Serbia and Montenegro. Eliminated in the quarters, Messi returned to Spain, at last landing a regular spot on the Barca team sheet, and with it became one of Europe's ones to watch. Murmurs were heard about the 19 across the continent, who now afforded the minutes he craved, was growing in confidence, meandering into the centre from the right flank as a slaloming winger, yet the goals remained elusive. Hosting an El Clasico against eternal rivals Real Madrid and looking to end a 20-game dry spell, Messi became the youngest ever to net a hat-trick for the Blaugrana, running Real's backline ragged, one that included a 20-year-old Sergio Ramos. It was a virtuoso performance that showcased not only his eye for goal and aptitude for finishing, but a fearlessness of the grandest stage. With his age on his back, something had clicked, and the thirst for goals intensified, thrashing away another 8 in the league, grasping a better understanding of positioning and off-the-ball movement. The second step in propelling him to the top of everyone's radar came in the Copa del Rey, mirroring Maradona's Hand of God follow-up from '86, manoeuvring through Getafe's entire team in a 60-yard dash to slice away maybe the greatest goal in the history of club football. The Nou Camp and its culés were in disbelief as this short, reticent boy wonder justified his hype, taking over as Barca's superstar when Ronaldinho's off-field antics took a toll on his form. Now also on penalties, the dedicated focus on shooting practice during training was reflected in his matchday displays, catching the ball sweeter, quick, low, and in the corners. His one-of-a-kind balance was the difference maker, and when it came to his dribbling, things had only improved. No longer was he getting shoved out of possession, and at his best was virtually untackleable. Voted as the world's third best player in 2007, recognition was coming his way fast, nicknamed La Pulga Atomica, the atomic flea. Hamstring problems came back to haunt him, cutting his season short again, and Barca this time felt his absence, dropping into third as Real went back-to-back. For President Joan Laporta, this was unacceptable, and he replaced Rijkaard with former club captain Pep Guardiola, who laid out strict plans which didn't involve some of the biggest names on their books, making way for Messi at the forefront of it all. Worries surrounded Messi's recurring injuries, and so the staff designed him a new regime, improving his diet and changing his training program. The Spaniard just knew that he was the future of the club, and if made the X-factor of a carefully constructed team, there was no ceiling for the Catalans. Signing a lucrative new contract to become the club's highest earner and inheriting the number 10, Leo was now the MVP and was ready to repay the faith of his new coach. With a group that boasted the likes of Thierry Henry, Yaya Touré and Xavi Hernandez, Guardiola discarded Barca's focus on flair in favour of a disciplined, possession-based style. To say this suited their star boy would be a gross understatement. The speedy, close-knit passing known as tiki-taka was perfect for the smaller, technical type of player, and forging a sharp understanding with Dani Alves down the right flank, Messi thrived as the offensive epicentre, exchanging rapid 1-2s to spin defenders as he progressed towards the box. And when he got there, it wasn't much fun for the goalie. Handed all the tools he requested, Pep had transformed this 21-year-old from a teen sensation into a goal machine and more than doubled last year's output.
There's no stopping him.
He did this by experimenting with a new idea for La Pulga, starting him on the Cameroonian's right, but in-game pushing Eto'o wide to create a strikerless 4-3-3 system in which Messi would function as a false nine. When he opted for this approach at the Bernabeu and the Argentine unleashed havoc from his secret position, it affirmed that Guardiola had discovered the blueprint to proceed with. Not only were his goals more frequent, but important, appearing on the scoresheet for the finals of the Copa del Rey and Champions League. As Guardiola's outfit lifted both to sit nicely on the cabinet alongside the La Liga trophy, making 08-09 Barcelona the first ever Spanish treble winners. Putting it lightly, this group was exceptional. Inheriting the philosophy of Johan Cruyff, Pep had crafted a Barcelona that shook up the footballing world, and there was no doubt about the identity of the player at the heart of it. Thus we enter the unstoppable era of Lionel Messi, when by the age of 22, his claim to the title of the world's best was unmistakable. He'd now firmly established himself in discussions about the greatest ever. Winning the Ballon d'Or and FIFA World Player of the Year by the biggest voting landslide since their inception, the treble was soon trumped by the sextuple, becoming the first team to stack 6 pieces of silverware in 1 year. That summer though, a swap deal was agreed sending Eto'o to Inter in return for Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who slipped on the number 9. His arrival meant Messi reverted to his spot on the wing, where he knew his impact was limited, and so after speaking to Guardiola, the formation changed, allotting the talisman his preferred role in the middle. The Swede was later loaned out after warming the bench for a while, and Pep didn't even blink an eye. He was that powerful. They needed his maximum, so everyone was at his beck and call, and into 2010 he essentially became a complete attacker. There had been significant muscular development in his legs, which were now like tree trunks, and whether it was the hormones or the gym work, the power packed into his stumpy limbs made him excel over short distances. All aspects to his game had blossomed, but his predatory instincts had seen the most enhancement, filling pockets of space in and around the box where he was easily found time and time again. The right foot wasn't an issue anymore, so there was no predicting him. Defenders just had to hope he made an error, but he never did. On top of this, Messi had now mastered the art of dribbling. Starting by his signature outside the boot touches, his weaving runs were now the most feared move in Europe, taking out entire teams with the ball glued to his foot. Only ever really incorporating practical skills, he was no trickster, but a wizard whose enchanting ability to embarrass elite-level professionals made he and Barcelona box office that everyone had to watch. Equaling Ronaldo Fenomeno's 96-97 record of 35 goals, which the Argentine hit in 35 games, they retained their rule over La Liga.
Back-to-back titles for Pep Guardiola.
Their dominance was fuel to the fire of Real, and Florentino Perez had splashed out in retaliation, acquiring the services of a 24-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo, who with a Ballon d'Or and European Cup already to his name, was an apt duelling partner for Barca's 10.
Oh, you beauty!
Football's great rivalry had commenced. Not just yet, however, had it reached its pinnacle. These were the early days, and Messi was operating on a different spectrum. Head, shoulders and then some above everyone else, succeeding his most prolific campaign with a 2010-11 run that made people question if he was even human.
È un fenomeno. È un fenomeno. Infatti adesso voglio correre fuori perché voglio vedere l'astronave quando parte.
Standing at 5'7", he had become the world's most daunting opponent, with coaches structuring their teams with the sole aim of neutralising his influence. This meant he was man-marked at all times while roaming as the false nine, so he began dropping deeper, combining with Xavi and Iniesta, drawing defenders with him to create a gap in their back line for the wider players to exploit. A couple shy of a goal per game domestically, it was his Champions League showing that stole the attention. Converting a mind-boggling brace in Madrid.
He's the boss, but here's Messi. Away from 2, 3, 4, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
He single-handedly secured tickets to Wembley for the final, where they again met Ferguson's Man United. This time, the gap in quality was clear, as the Spaniards dominated throughout, with each member of the front three putting one past Van der Sar, but it was the game winner, rippling the net for a 53rd time in the 9 months, who was named man of the match to cap off, on paper, the best individual campaign ever in Spanish football. Also the division's top assister.
Brilliant run by Villa. Can he finish it off? He can!
A third Ballon d'Or was irrefutable, but that didn't make it any less absurd for a 24-year-old to already be in the company of Platini, Van Basten and Cruyff. Just in case, La Pulga set out to immortalise his name in the GOAT conversation with the much discussed year of 2012. If before he had been knocking on the door of soccer's records room, this was an all-out assault, sparing no one as he seamlessly embodied the roles of a creative number 8, a scoring 9 and playmaking 10, all in one. With years in Guardiola's fine-tuned system under his belt, uninterrupted by injury, Messi hit his goal-scoring apex, registering an unprecedented half-century in just the league alone, and another 23 from cup competitions to make it 73 overall inside merely 50 appearances. 7 hat-tricks, 2 4-goal games and 1 fiver, a first in the annals of the Champions League. It went beyond crazy, entering the realm of the obscene as he surpassed the 57-year-old record of Cesar Rodriguez to become Barca's all-time leading scorer. All but 4 of the 73 came from inside the box, and only 1 of those was from open play. Why was this? Because in a team that kept the ball on the floor, mostly under the feet of world champion midfielders, it was easy to slot in their 10.
Should be 4, is 4.
By the new year of 2013, he'd extended his tally to 91 goals from the 69 games he'd featured in during 2012, breaking Gerd Müller's total from the 70s as the highest scoring sum in a calendar year. Averaging 1.3 goals per game for 52 weeks straight, he'd done in 1 year what many forwards couldn't do in 20.
Oh, it's another hat-trick.
Still, it wasn't enough. Mourinho had guided Real to the League of the Records, and Chelsea got their revenge, prompting an exhausted Guardiola to step down, marking the end of a glorious 4-year era for a team that many deem the finest to ever play the game. Pep's understudy Tito Villanova assumed control, ushering in the period of Messi dependencia. Individually accounting for over 40% of the team's attacking output, his influence went beyond tactics, now also a psychological booster for the rest of the dressing room, and when the manager took a temporary leave while battling cancer, their over-reliance on the 10 became evident. Everyone was off their game bar Messi, who after a 19-game scoring streak came back down to earth, straining his hamstring in April.
Well, it's bad news. Messi seems to have done himself some damage there in trying to twist the ball in.
Even injured, he was vital, with his mere presence enough to provide hope. But regardless of the silverware, there was no denying Barca's vulnerability. To dispel the notion of Messi dependency, the club welcomed a 22-year-old Neymar, the Santos wonder kid. Already a global name, the idea of a partnership between he and the Argentine ignited a fresh excitement around the new camp, and the newcomer laid a strong foundation for his future as a Blaugrana. Although, this time tearing his hamstring, Messi was sidelined for blocks of time across the months, crippling their form in another underwhelming year. For the last 4 seasons, football had belonged to him, but these injuries cost him the crown, because across Spain, Ronaldo, now primarily a striker, had capitalised on Messi's muscle strains to deny the Argentine a Ballon d'Or 5-peat. At the height of animosity in the Clásico, this had to infuriate him, but the current setup wasn't effective. Something needed to be altered. The arrival of Luis Enrique signalled a turning point, letting go of Alexis Sanchez to free up funds for the purchase of Liverpool's Luis Suarez. With the Golden Boot in hand, he was the most informed number 9 Europe had to offer, optimal as the lone target man, so Messi returned to his roots on the right wing while Neymar played off the Uruguayan's left. This was the birth of MSN, a destructive triad blending the flair of the 11, finishing of the 9, and genius of the 10, spearheading a revamped team that had shed Pep's circumspective ways, now aggressively direct and more geared towards the counter-attack. Week by week, their chemistry evolved, interchanging quickly to dazzle defences, and though brilliant as a collective, it was Messi who shone brightest. Changing his diet from pizza and chocolate to meat and veg for greater endurance, his time as a false 9 was over, now a pure winger taking on fullbacks and searching for El Pistolero, whose work rate and shrewd movement was the perfect foil for Messi to perform number 10 duties as the deepest of the three. The weight of extreme pressure lifted off his shoulders to be divided amongst the three, who became a tight-knit friend group off the pitch, taking on Europe together. La Liga became their playground, while in the Champions League, midweek viewers couldn't get enough of this reinvigorated Barca, storming through the knockouts, leaving in their wake the domestic title holders of England, France and Germany, only to match the Italians at the last stage. By then, Enrique's side had edged out Zidane's Real, and Messi had added another unfathomable highlight to a reel of endless entertainment as Bilbao fell short in the Copa del Rey. A strictly marshalled, formidable Juventus side knew what they had gotten into within minutes of the first whistle, and the tenacious trio each had a hand in tearing apart the world's toughest defence. The Argentine, with 58 goals in 57 games that year, not to mention his 31 assists, had once again solidified his position amongst the all-time elite, serving as the jewel of football's only 2-time treble-winning club.
They've done the treble again.
The next 2 years saw MSN continue to terrorise, setting a new Spanish record of 131 total goals in 2016. The most by a trio in a single season, and their legacy expanded, widely deemed history's preeminent front line.
Neymar, capa Messi, Messi, goal!
Trapped in Messi's shadow, Neymar left, and despite the several hundred million that was spent to replace him, they couldn't replicate the magic, so keeping Barca on top became a two-man job. A subsequent domestic double suggested this duo would be enough going forward, but by the start of the 18-19 campaign, Barca had clearly gone stale. Once known for dominating the midfield, they were now without Iniesta, and Busquets' powers were waning. The back line had a similar story, aging talents beside mediocre replacements, and Suarez's output began to decline. Since Enrique went, Barcelona was a shadow of its former self, so now under Ernesto Valverde, Messi was allotted full freedom as captain, with which he made wine out of water. Whether second striker to the Uruguayan or the orchestrator from deep, he was dictatorial, strapping the team on his back and regularly carrying them to 3 points. Thus the calls of Messi dependencia had never been shriller. Coming across more driven than ever before, he did everything that year, from running the midfield with little quick combos to even crunching into tackles as the front-footed defender. Adding to that, of course, were the stats. Into his 30s and working doubly as hard while further from goal, he again broke the rules. scoring 36 in 34 league games to capture both his 6th Pichichi and Golden Shoe. Like a man possessed at times, Messi could not be stopped, even proving himself to be on par with De Bruyne when it comes to playmaking, developing into one of the world's best passers. This one-man team had exceeded expectations by comfortably conquering the league that since Ronaldo's 2018 departure had lost some value and was renamed by some Leo Liga. Carrying them to the point where a 3rd treble was on the cards, it all collapsed with the infamous Anfield semi-final. Journeying to Merseyside 3 goals up, with Messi on 12 in the Champions League himself, the shaky pillars of the Blaugrana crumbled in a humiliating 4-0 loss.
Messi mashed on Merseyside.
The embarrassment had only just begun for the Catalans. Destroyed 8-2 by Bayern in their follow-up campaign, Valverde was shown the door, replaced by Ronald Koeman, who fared even worse. Now more like a trequartista-type Cam, Messi refused to give up on his beloved Blaugrana, passing 20 in league goals and assists ahead of another 38-goal season under the Dutchman. But now even Suarez was gone, and the coming times were dark at the Nou Camp. It was time for him to face the music. 17 years, 778 games, 672 goals and 34 trophies. No one in football's history can compare to Messi's legendary tenure at FC Barcelona. Yet, this was the end of the road. COVID caused chaos at board level, and FFP rulings made it a necessity for Laporta to get him off their books, so the club icon will become a free agent in July 2021 at 34 years old. As one of the only in Europe who could afford his wages, Paris Saint-Germain offered him a 2-year deal of guaranteed Champions League football and a chance to reunite with Neymar in a front three completed by Kylian Mbappe. MNM, as they were tagged, showed signs of alchemy but ultimately underperformed, failing to bring the European Cup to the capital. Messi endured his worst season in 16 years, admitting to having grappled with the adjustment and with finding his best position in Maurizio Pochettino's more rigid setup. L'Hexagol alone wasn't enough, so in came Christophe Galtier, a blessing for the number 30, who in a narrowed formation sat behind the pair, allowing Messi liberty in the offense as the maestro. 54 goal contributions in all made it an impressive return to form, aiding the Parisians to consecutive titles. Yet a missed training session while on vacation in Saudi created a disconnect between he and the Ultras, and having seen out the 2 years, he left France. 3 months into what was his last European season, something else took precedence. The 2022 Qatar World Cup opened that November, and given their achievements across the last 2 years, La Albiceleste were considered a top contender in what was likely to be Messi's final chance. The captain's international career hadn't been much to boast about. To recap, after the 2006 World Cup, he was named the best young player of the Copa America, became an Olympic gold medalist in 2008, was scapegoated for the side's elimination in South Africa, given the armband, led his nation to the World Cup final, having bagged 4 times in Brazil, only to suffer a 1-0 defeat to Germany, heart-wrenchingly skied his spot kick to hand the Copa to Chile, and delivered a generally substandard set of performances in Russia to count them out of another World Cup.
He looks to me like a guy who's just had enough of it all.
By the age of 20, all the pressure had been bundled on Messi's back, with every coach structuring the team around him to no avail. However, this started to change after the COVID pandemic. A delayed Copa America in June 2021 saw the skipper step up, having a hand in 9 of the 11 goals Argentina scored to face Brazil in the Battle of the Americas finale. It was as steep a hill to get over as possible, but through the veteran Angel Di Maria, the deadlock was broken, and after 3 decades were again crowned Kings of South America. Messi was awarded the Golden Boot and named the tournament's standout, a title he received again next year for the Finalissima against Euros winners Italy, providing 2 assists in their 3-0 whitewash in Wembley. Lionel Scaloni was the man to lift them out of this trophyless ditch, giving Messi the missing sense of accomplishment from a career filled with honours. In the Middle East, they were quickly knocked off their high horse by Saudi Arabia, who stunned the world with a victory to drown Argentine hopes. This kicked them into gear, and they overcame both Mexico and Poland to escape Group C, reigniting belief. Messi's partnership with the young Julian Alvarez blossomed against Australia, each giving a goal to progress to the quarters. The Battle of Lusail, as it's since been named, appeared easier than anticipated for the Argentines.
Beautiful pass! It's a wonderful Argentina goal!
A Wout Weghorst double revived it for extra time, where things got even more heated. Ending in a shootout, it was Emi Martinez who emerged as the star, shattering the Dutch dream of completing this comeback. Maybe the angriest we've ever seen him, there was evidently bad blood between Messi and Van Gaal, which spilled over to create a World Cup classic. Though not an exceptional team, they were fully unified, driven by the love for their inspirational captain, and this showed in their triumph over Croatia, with the Flea and the Little Spider overwhelming Gvardiol and co. to land a place in the final. The reigning champions awaited them, with what many believe to be a stronger, proven squad. But counting out any team with Messi can come back to bite, and 1.5 billion people tuned in to the World Cup final of a lifetime. The skipper placed the opener in from 12 yards, and then initiated a counter that unravelled into a wonderful team goal, finished off by Di Maria. 2 up by the break, they maintained their advantage well into the second half. Yet, as Les Bleus got more desperate, Scaloni's defence buckled, and a brace from Mbappe inside 2 minutes left Argentina bewildered. Heroics by the unrelenting 10 rescued their lead before it was erased once again 10 minutes later by his Parisian teammate. Billed as a bout between the two, the spectacle somehow overperformed, and in the shootout, Messi beat Lloris for a 3rd time to give them an edge, and more Martinez magnificence gave the fullback Montiel a kick to seal it. The 36-year wait had come to an end as the youngsters emulated La Albiceleste of 1986 with Messi as their Maradona. Averaging a goal per game, FIFA named him player of the tournament, and now, having added the game's most elusive prize to his cabinet, was regarded in the eyes of many, separated from Ronaldo, as the greatest of all time.
The little boy from Rosario Santa Fe has just pitched up in heaven.
Now at Inter Miami, Messi's star power has entered the gaze of a whole other audience, and much like the NBA, some of the world's most famous names have gathered to watch this little genius light up the States. Already winning the club its first trophy and scoring screamers by the plenty, it looks as if the Rosario native is loving the Florida sun as he relaxes gently into what must be an approaching retirement. The so-called prime of Lionel Messi is debatable, as he's been world-class now for 16 years, and from 2007 to 2023, his numbers have ranged between good and preposterous. Although, like his Portuguese counterpart, the stats are too simple a way to judge a player like Messi, and witnessing his evolution throughout this decade and a half, I think we've seen him peak in different ways. The dribbling prime was the first version of him. A unique blend of spindly and stocky, he would complete these mazy dynamic dribbles, head down, racing at full sprint with a gazelle's change of direction that made Spanish viewers sit up. Far from the finished article, he was a long-haired diamond in the rough, in need of polishing so he could shine. Enter Pep Guardiola, who enabled the emergence of the goal-scoring prime. This was Messi at his most productive and clinical, transformed into a record-breaking machine who produced inhuman stats as the false nine. Capable of every finish in the book, his brain would switch between working like a lethal number 9 in the face of goal to an artistic 10 when 1-2ing with the Spaniards in the mid. None of this got in the way of his dribbling though, continuing to seep through back lines, but with an improved reading of the game, this was a different monster. Next came his complete prime, when throughout the separate eras of Messi dependency, and as he got older, we saw an all-rounded version of Messi, who could do a job wherever, but assumed the enganche function more so. No longer suited for excessive running on the right flank, he was now running the game, while also outscoring his teammates by considerable margins year in, year out. Bearded Messi had more time on the ball to pick out Pirlo-like pings, in addition to getting up and around the box to pummel away bangers from range. A typical but incomparable number 10. Clearly his statistical peak was in 2012, so for many that's when he hit his apex. But ultimately it's subjective. Whether you loved watching him drop his shoulder and tear through defences to make a mockery out of the footballing elite, or controlling the tempo as the brain, soul and spirit of Barcelona, Lionel Messi has made the game's most revered number his own. He shares the podium with one other, and the loyal fans of each will argue their case forever. Although, as the sport's most accomplished individual of all time, not even the most die-hard CR7 devotee can fairly deny Messi the title of football's GOAT.
He is a god of the game. The god of the game.